Coach PJ here. If you're looking to start a business and you're wondering how to play the odds in your favor, what will it take to succeed? There's a great video I ran across called The Single Business Reason Why Startups Succeed. And the gentleman describes all the different factors in the success of a new business, the success of an entrepreneur. Let's take a look and see what we can learn.
I'm really excited to share with you some findings that really surprised me about what makes companies succeed the most, what factors actually matter the most for startup success. I believe that the startup organization is one of the greatest forms to make the world a better place. If you take a group of people with the right equity incentives and organize them in a startup, you can unlock human potential in a way never before possible. You get them to achieve unbelievable things. But if the startup organization is so great, why do so many fail? That's what I wanted to find out. I wanted to find out what actually matters most for startup success. And I wanted to try to be systematic about it, avoid some of my instincts and maybe misperceptions I have from so many companies I've seen over the years. I wanted to know this because I've been starting businesses since I was 12 years old, when I sold candy at the bus stop in junior high school, to high school when I made solar energy devices, to college when I made loudspeakers. When I graduated from college, I started software companies. And 20 years ago, I started Idea Lab, and in the last 20 years, we started more than 100 companies, many successes and many big failures. We learned a lot from those failures. So I tried to look across what factors accounted the most for company success and failure. So I looked at these 5. First, the idea. I used to think that the idea was everything. I named my company Idea Lab and how much I worship the aha moment when you first come up with the idea. But then over time, I came to think that maybe the team, the execution, adaptability, that mattered even more than the idea. I never thought I'd be quoting boxer Mike Tyson on the TED stage, but he once said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face." And I think that's so true about business as well. So much about a team's execution is its ability to adapt to getting punched in the face by the customer. The customer is the true reality. And that's why I came to think that the team maybe was the most important thing. Then I started looking at the business model. Does the company have a very clear path generating customer revenues? That started rising to the top in my thinking about maybe what mattered most for success. Then I looked at the funding. Sometimes companies received intense amount of funding. Maybe that's the most important thing. And then of course the timing. Is the idea way too early and the world's not ready for it? Is it early, meaning you're in advance and you have to educate the world? Is it just right, or is it too late and there's already too many competitors? So I tried to look very carefully at these 5 factors across many companies. And I looked across all 100 Idea Lab companies and 100 non-Idea Lab companies to try and come up with something scientific about it.
So let's stop there for a second. Love this guy, love the scientific approach, love the fact that he is looking across 5 different factors, that he's going to analyze businesses that he's been involved in, businesses that he has not been involved in, and that he looks at it from all facets, whether it's the way the business model operates, whether it's the team, whether it's actually just the idea. The fact that he's going to analyze it in a way that's somewhat subjective, but has an objectivity spectrum of elements to it is helpful. Let's take a look at what he finds.
So first, on these Idea Lab companies, the top 5 companies, City Search, Cars Direct, GoTo, Net Zero, Tickets.com, those all became billion-dollar successes. And the 5 companies on the bottom, Z.com, Insider Pages, My Life, Desktop Factory, PeopleLink, we all had high hopes for, but didn't succeed. So I tried to rank across all of those attributes how I felt those companies scored on each of those dimensions. And then for non-Idea Lab companies, I looked at wild successes like Airbnb and Instagram, Uber and YouTube and LinkedIn, and some failures, Webvan, Cosmo, Pets.com, Flues, and Friendster. The bottom companies had intense funding. They even had business models in some cases, but they didn't succeed. I tried to look at what factors actually counted the most for success and failure across all of these companies, and the results really surprised me. The number one thing was timing. Timing accounted for 42% of the difference between success and failure. Team and execution came in second, And the idea, the differentiability of the idea, the unique idea, that actually came in third. Now, this isn't absolutely definitive. It's not to say that the idea isn't important. But it very much surprised me that the idea wasn't the most important thing. Sometimes it mattered more when it was actually timed. The last two, business model and funding, made sense to me, actually. I think business model makes sense to be that low because you can start out without a business model and then add one later if your customers are demanding what you're creating. And funding, I think as well. If you're underfunded at first, but you're gaining traction, especially in today's age, it's very, very easy to get intense funding.
Let's stop there for a second. You surprised? I'm not truly surprised. I think of timing as, is the customer ready? Is the customer asking for this idea? Is the customer have a need that you've now identified? And I think that's how they're looking at timing. That's how I would look at timing, as to what is the need you're trying to meet, and does the customer even understand that's a need? Do they have a gap in what they're looking for that you can then fill? So I love the fact that timing is so critical. I totally agree with him. Funding, there's a lot of businesses out there that are bootstrapping it, that are self-funding. I know we're talking about some big funding and some organizations and some entrepreneurial opportunities that are highly funded, but for the average person, we're not looking at funding. We're looking at, how do I build the business as I go, and how do I self-fund that business with a small investment up front, perhaps. So it's really important to understand that funding is the lowest item. You don't have to get funding out of the gate to be successful. So I think that's pretty cool. Pretty cool learning here. Let's keep watching.
So now let me give you some specific examples about each of these. So take a wild success like Airbnb, everybody knows about. Well, that company was famously passed on by many smart investors because people thought, no one's going to rent out a space in their home to a stranger. Of course, people proved that wrong. But one of the reasons it succeeded, aside from a good business model, a good idea, great execution, is the timing. That company came out right during the height of the recession when people really needed extra money. And that maybe helped people overcome their objection to renting out their own home to a stranger. Same thing with Uber. Uber came out, incredible company, incredible business model, great execution too. But the timing was so perfect for their need to get drivers into the system. Drivers were looking for extra money. It was very, very important. Some of our early successes, CitySearch came out when people needed web pages. GoTo.com, which we announced actually at TED in 1998, was when companies were looking for cost-effective ways to get traffic. We thought the idea was so great, but actually the timing was probably maybe more important. And then some of our failures. We started a company called Z.com. It was an online entertainment company. We were so excited about it. We raised enough money. We had a great business model. We even signed incredibly great Hollywood talent to join the company. But broadband penetration was too low in 1999, 2000. It was too hard to watch video content online. You had to put codecs in your browser and do all this stuff. And the company eventually went out of business in 2003. Just 2 years later, when the codec problem was solved by Adobe Flash, and when broadband penetration crossed 50% in America, YouTube was perfectly timed. Great idea, but unbelievable timing. And in fact, YouTube didn't even have a business model when it first started. It wasn't even certain that that would work out. But that was beautifully, beautifully timed.
So he does talk about timing, and he is talking about it in the needs of the customer reality. If the customer's ready and the product's there, then the customer's opportunity to buy and to invest in the product or to use the service is super high. And there has to be a natural demand, so I think that's kind of interesting. Let's keep watching.
So what I would say in summary is execution definitely matters a lot. The idea matters a lot, but timing might matter even more. And the best way to really assess timing is to really look whether consumers are really ready for what you have to offer them. And to be really, really honest about it, not be in denial about any results that you see. Because if you have something you love, you want to push it forward. But you have to be very, very honest about that factor on timing.
So there you have it. Timing is everything. Have you ever heard that before? It sounds very familiar, doesn't it? But the truth is, to make sure your customer wants what you have, wants what you're selling, wants what you're proposing. And the sooner you can get market research, the sooner you can get customer surveys, the sooner you can get feedback, the sooner you will know whether or not there's a need, whether or not you're in the right time, whether or not you're in front of your customer when they need the product you're selling or the service you're selling. So If you liked this reaction and you want to hear more, give me some ideas on things you would like me to react to. Happy to do so. Coach PJ, until next time.